one of the most brilliant lawyers of our times, the most connected, definitely, but also a constitutional expert, someone who's also always spoken for the freedom of the press. I welcome on the show today someone whom it's a delight to watch, Senior Advocate Mr. CA Sundaram. Hello sir, as I welcome you on the show today, it's a pleasure to have you. It's also something we've been also wanting to ask. Today we're not only going to talk to you, Mr. Sundaram, about your cases, about your constitutional prowess, about your corporate cases, but also about your other passions. And that's where I want to begin this chat.
Rhythm, it's a pleasure coming on the show with you. You know, I've always been so fond of you and all that you have accomplished yourself.
Thank you.
And it's my pleasure. So go ahead.
Let's take a seat, sir. Mr. Sundaram, I want to begin by asking you about your early years, your early idols. Of course, we know about your father being the chairman of the National Small Industries, and of course, your very erudite, very illustrious grandfather who persisted that you should be an advocate, but of course, he passed away when you were 9 years. Sir CP, tell us about the different influences of them in your life, sir.
Well, I must say the strongest influence in my life professionally was my grandfather. The reason was that perhaps by the time I came along, he had, stopped his very active public life, and he perhaps found enough time to actually have a grandson,
yes.
Rather than always being too busy. So, and he was very particular that I should be a lawyer. So I remember at the age when most children would turn around when they were 5 and 6 that I want to be a pilot or I want to be an engine driver or whatever. If anybody asked me, I'd say, I want to be a lawyer. Because my grandfather told me that, remember, you're a lawyer, you're going to be a lawyer, and that's what you're going to be. In fact, once when he asked me, what do you want to be? And I said, well, I want to be king. When I was very young. And he smiled at me and said, don't be king. King's heads fall. Become president. That was his sense of humor. So I went into law. I finished my degree in philosophy. I passed to I got the gold medal in philosophy.
Yeah, so, I was about to ask you.
So at that time, I had been offered various scholarships to go abroad. But, my father was much older than me, much older. In fact, I was born when he was late 40s. And he wasn't too well. So I decided that I'd rather do my education, my law in India. So I studied in Madras. I studied in the Madras Law College, finished from there, and then enrolled as a lawyer there. So that was the start of my career.
Almost feels like we are not in India. Seeing the beautiful blue, the white, it seems like we're somewhere abroad. So do you have any parties here? Do you actually entertain in this beautiful area?
Yes.
I want to actually go to the time when one of the most hardworking lawyers, you were young, 38 when you became a senior, not the practice at that time. Today everybody becomes a senior advocate by giving their names. At that time you had to be chosen to be a senior. They were usually the age of 45, you became at 38, and also you were 15 years in practice, and that's when you became a senior.
Absolutely.
Tell us about that hardworking time and how this happened.
Oh, well, I enjoyed the profession, I must say that, from day one. I worked in a law firm, which was the largest law firm in Madras at that time, and it was an old English law firm. And the wonderful thing about that was, since they didn't really pay the juniors, and if you did get paid, you got paid as princely sum of 300 rupees. So many of the people who were on the rolls were not really too keen on doing too much work.
Right.
There were, of course, exceptions. So I found the opportunity of just taking on as much. The poor clerk would come around with 20 cases for the day for the firm and be distributing the briefs, and everyone will be avoiding it. And I tell him, give me as many as you want, but make sure I get the briefs. I'll be in at 8:30. Make sure you give it to me by 8:30 in the morning.
Okay.
So that then I would go and do that. So I had a great exposure And the judges in those days, in those days Madras High Court had only 18 judges. And the judges, it was like, if you're a judge of a high court, I remember if a judge of the high court walked into the music academy during the cultural season, where there's a performance, if he just walked in not as a chief guest, but just as a part of the audience, the entire audience of 1,000 people will stand up and say, the judges come, the judges come.
Such was the respect.
Oh, it was enormous, it was tremendous. And I was very fortunate because I got a few breaks very early. Within 3 months in my career, I got various chances where the court wouldn't give a passover or wouldn't give an adjournment.
Yes.
And then, they would have given it anyway, finally. But, as usual, you test a junior. So it so happened that one of the toughest judges told me when I was 3 months and I said, have this case on another day. He said, no. Then he said, this is the problem with the juniors. You don't read the brief, you don't whatever. And I don't know what got into me. I got really upset and I turned to him and said, you're not fair. I know my brief, I've read my brief, and you can't say that I haven't read my brief. These were my instructions to my senior. He didn't tell me to argue the case. I can't argue it. He says, oh, you've read your brief. What's your case? So I explained the case. He heard me for 10 minutes, in the middle of which he asked my name. And then he heard the other side and he allowed our appeal.
Oh gosh, amazing.
And when he allowed our appeal, he ended it by saying, on payment of costs of 500 rupees, which was a huge amount in those days, to be paid to Mr. Sundaram.
Oh, wow.
So that was really wonderful. You got breaks like that.
Yes.
And if you took those breaks, well, everything was good. But 3.5 years after I had joined this firm, some of my colleagues there and I set up our own practice, set up our own firm, which over the years became actually one of the busiest law firms in Madras.
Yes.
And definitely in the original side, every day we had at least about 10 or 15 cases. At that time, I think it must have been when I was 9 years in the bar. Mr. Soli Sorabji became the Attorney General and he wanted me to become the Senior Central Government Standing Counsel. There were no ASGs in those days, Senior Central Government Standing Counsel, and rang me up and said, I'm making you the Senior Central Government Standing Counsel. So I said, oh, wonderful, great. Then he calls me back and says, Sundaram, you haven't finished 10 years in the bar? So I said, no, I finished only 9. He says, oh my God, there's a rule that Senior Central Government Standing Counsel should be 10 years. I'll do one thing. I'll make you Central Government Standing Counsel and I won't appoint a Senior Central Government Standing Counsel.
What a story.
That's what he told me. So I used to do a lot of cases for the government, but I could also do my private work.
Amazing.
So what we really earned from the government was nothing at all.
That's right.
In fact, I used to use that to give the clerkage to my clerk.
Yes.
And I used to earn out of my private work.
Yes.
And then it was very amusing because I must have been close to 15 years in the bar when one of the most distinguished senior advocates in Madras in those days, called Mr. Govind Swaminathan, who was a famous man, very famous. One day he turned to me and said, tell me, Aryama, why are you not a senior counsel? I said, Govind, I can't be a senior counsel. He said, why not? I said, I haven't even finished 15 years in the bar. The Madras High Court had a rule that you could be made a senior counsel only if you're 45.
Yes.
However, they had a particular guideline by which you could make a special exemption if someone had finished 15 years.
Amazing.
So Govind says, when are you completing 15 years? I said, so-and-so date. So he said, I see. So-and-so month, so-and-so date. It was a couple of months away. On that very day, someone comes and says, Mr. Swaminathan wants to see you in his chambers. So I went to his chambers and he tossed a letter across to me. Do you know what that letter read? Dear Chief, I believe it's time Aryama Sundaram was designated senior counsel. Sincerely, Govind Swaminathan.
Wow.
That's all.
A lovely anecdote. Lovely, lovely.
That evening, I got a call from the registrar.
Okay.
And the registrar said that you have been proposed as a senior counsel. I need a letter of consent from you. So what I had to give was a letter saying, I hereby give my consent to being designated senior counsel.
Such a different practice and
That's
such a beautiful, respectful practice compared to what's happening today, sir. I mean, I don't want to get into that here, but this is the way the bar should have actually functioned, with the respect, with the integrity, the word you'd used earlier,
Yeah.
which
You see,
is...
I'll tell you something. It was 4 days later, on a Friday, the full court at 4:30. There was no secret balloting, nothing. The full court met and said, we've got a proposal for designation of Sundaram. So someone said, yes, but he's not 45. Shall we pass a resolution exempting him from it? And another judge apparently said, yes, of course. Resolution passed. And everyone said, yes. There was, you know, even if 2 or 3 judges said no, usually you weren't designated. So here everybody said yes, and apparently, like one of the judges told me afterwards, he said it was our shortest discussion. We met at 4:30 and left at 4:33. And I was designated senior counsel. It was that, and I was the youngest ever in the history of the Madras High Court.
38 is very young, sir.
Yeah, no, in the Madras High Court, yes, it was the youngest ever in 160 years or whatever of the Madras High Court. It was, yeah, it was very young in those days, but it was wonderful.
We've heard about you several times, which I'm going to ask you about your freedom of speech, constitutional love and love for freedom of speech. You're always speaking for the press also. But I want to first talk about your love for horses. Where does it come from, and how is it going? How many horses do you have right now?
Look, I mean, I really have had 2 phases in my love for horses. When I was younger, even as a young lawyer, I used to ride every morning. By 5:30 in the morning, I was on horseback, and I used to ride. And in those days, we had, you know, the riding club in Madras. We right opposite it were the whole gardens of the Raj Bhavan, which was actually a reserve forest.
Okay.
So we were allowed, we were given special permission, all of us, to ride there. So I used to go there every morning, 5:30, I was on horseback. We'd ride in there. I'd see black buck, fox, once a python which crossed, and my horse went right up and reared up. I'll never forget that. So I used to ride a lot. And over a period of time, and because the riding club was right next to the race course, I got to see a lot of the race horses. And in fact, most of our horses which we used to ride were race horses which had retired.
Okay.
So I saw the race, and so I used to go to the races. And I remember even much earlier, when I was very young, my grandfather lived in Ooty, so every holiday we went up to Ooty. And Ooty was famous for the Ooty races. Unfortunately, that's now been shut down because it was really an institution of Ooty. And the Ooty races, and you'd have children, families, everybody there to watch the horse racing. So I loved it. So much later, about 20, 25 years ago, not 20 years ago, I just touched on it. But in the last about 8 years, I have started buying a lot of horses for racing.
Right.
And I have good horses in racing. They race in Bangalore, they race in Hyderabad, they race in some in Calcutta and Bombay.
Yes, of
so I have
course.
horses in different centers, and I enjoy my racing. I'm not a gambler.
Yes.
I'm not a gambler at all, though I must admit that I do enjoy playing poker. But on horses, no, I'm not a gambler, but I just enjoy owning horses and
Lovely, sir.
racing them.
Racing them. And how many races have they won recently, sir? Which is the one you're most proud of?
Oh, tremendous amount of races. And in fact, even coming couple of weeks, I'm hoping to have one of my horses running in the Guineas and running in the Hyderabad Derby.
Lovely.
So let's see.
Lovely,
let's see
lovely.
what happens. I've
Lovely.
had some good wins.
And I always talk about your house. This is something we've always seen, sir. The beautiful blue, white, the Greek touch. And, you know, this is something which, when we used to come earlier, we used to be awed by it. Everyone's doing up houses today. But this was many years ago. You've always been possibly someone whom everybody has been following, because this is the kind of touch that very few people, rarely with their own taste, have in Delhi.
Well, I told you, this is basically the Mediterranean colors.
Yes, sir.
And I felt, you know, given the weather, it's hot. So I felt white was a nice color. Yet
Yes.
it can't be just a common white.
Yes.
So I used this kind of work on it, which is really this corrugated work on the white. which originally I had done by putting marble chips into the
Oh.
white cement,
All right.
which was very good. And of course the blue grill,
Yes.
the blue window frames. So, like I said, very Greek.
Absolutely. We're now in the very coveted dining area of Mr. Sundaram's house, residential area. Extremely VIP this looks. Sir, take us through what is here and what are the personal, loved, cherished belongings that you have here.
Well, of course, art.
Yes.
Wherever in this house you will find art, because art is always something I've cherished and I love and I appreciate. For example, those are vegetable oils on paper, which is actually Persian. They're very old because the script also is Persian, and they're some of the Mughal emperors. That, for example, is a very old Tanjore.
Oh, that's stunning.
You know, the interesting thing about Tanjore is all of you are used to seeing Tanjores which have Lord Krishna and Lord Shiva and all that.
Yes, that's right.
And those are actually not the old Tanjores.
Right.
Those are Tanjores which came in 1900, 1890.
Right.
The really ancient Tanjores
Right.
were always of the Peshwa
Oh.
and the emperor, because these artists who had come in, they were all patronized by the Peshwa. And as is usual, you only paint your patron.
Oh, lovely.
So this actually, of all my Tanjores, is probably the oldest of those.
Very nice. I also, of course, we all know about your love for horses. These are your trophies.
Some
your
of them,
pointed-
yes, some of them. There are many more elsewhere, but some of
And
them, yeah.
what about this? What is all this? Of course, I can see Wedgwood pieces as well. Beautiful ones.
And these are a whole collection of the different, you know, figures of history, of literature. These are all beer mugs. They're all
Have you had
basically
beer in these mugs?
Yes, I did. I did enjoy beer in one of
yes.
these mugs. But
And who are the illustrious clients and friends that you've actually had here, sir, dining with you?
oh, I've had quite a few friends coming here. A lot of, you know, obviously many of my very good friends, apart from which I have people like, you know, some of my friends who were in the judiciary.
Yes.
They have also always have been here. And some of my friends who are in the diplomatic world, some of the ambassadors from different countries who have come to India for a period of time, I've got to know. So usually I use this as my formal, you know, dining room for a sit-down dinner.
Yes, yes.
So
of course.
usually here I'd like to host not more than a dozen people. you know.
Right.
So then it's a sit-down dinner here. And otherwise, of course, if I'm having another dinner party, I just have a buffet laid out here and the
Very nice.
party here.
I wanted to ask you, as I'm going to go through other parts of the house with Mr. Sundaram, has everything been personally chosen by
Oh,
you?
yes, 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 very much. Let me tell you something. Half the fun, half the joy is looking for something which you, or finding something or noticing something that you really like and getting that. I don't believe in having a designer designing my house. I don't believe in having a designer deciding what kind of chairs I should have, what table I should have, what my furniture should be.
So where did you design this, sir?
Well, this is a silver table of a designer called Adesh Gill, who I got this from her. And well, it's a very simple table, but it's something which I liked, and so that's it. So like all these artworks which you find around, every single one of them has been found by me, sourced by me, bought by me.
Amazing.
So that's,
and I asked you earlier, sir, even as we're going to go across your drawing room now, some of these pieces are Indian, some of them you've purchased from Argentina and from across the world.
Yes, I have. In fact, I have a lot of art elsewhere. You'll find art even in my chambers, you'll find art all over. But you'll find there's quite a lot of art in the living room, and some of them are works I have actually bought outside the country.
Even your entire house, even when I used to come in, when I used to just take your reactions, I used to always feel so Mediterranean, so Greek. So that's also been influenced by a Greek.
That I must admit, terribly influenced, extremely influenced
Okay.
by Greek, which is why even the flooring, everything else, it's very Greek. Even the colors of the house, the Mediterranean blue and
The blue, that is
white
something we have to take, yes.
is completely Greek. So yes, Greece has always fascinated me, more so because I was a student of philosophy.
Right, yes.
So Greek philosophers, Greek philosophy was something which I did read about a lot.
Very interesting.
And then I got very interested in Greek history. So Greek and Roman, both their ancient civilizations, their philosophy, their history, always fascinating.
The one thing I forgot to ask you earlier when we were doing the interview, what is a day in your life like?
Well, I'm a late riser. I normally rise only at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
8:30. After which if I have morning conferences, 1 or 2, it's at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Then I'm in court from 10:30 to 4.
Yes.
I get back and then I work out. After I work out, my evening conferences start at 6:45 and could go on till whenever I finish. After which I relax.
What do you do to relax, sir?
Relax. I could have some friends and we could be having a chat, maybe have a drink, watch some TV, maybe watch a movie,
Right.
watch news. And that's what I do. Sometimes read a book.
What sort of books do you read and what movies do you like watching?
Movies, actually, I enjoy these. Nowadays, there are quite a few nice serials which have come out.
Yes.
I've seen this very nice movie the other day called Presumed Innocent, which is about a legal issue.
Right,
where
right.
A public prosecutor is accused of murder.
Oh,
And,
very
it's,
interesting.
so it's an episode, 7, 8 episodes.
Nice.
Books, whether it's fiction or whether it's non-fiction, I just read anything which is
Anything.
topical at a given time.
And what do you do on your weekends?
Weekends, usually I find that one day is for work, but I get another day fully free.
Okay.
I travel often.
Okay.
Whether I have a home in Goa where I might go, or I might go elsewhere, or I might go down to Chennai.
Right.
So I travel. I have horses.
Yes.
So I often go to see my horses run, which is great fun because if a horse is running in Bombay, for example, I go that weekend to Bombay to see the horse run. I meet my friends in Bombay and it becomes and I get back. One day is of course for work. So when I get back, I do my work for the next day.
Lovely.
And so I do a bit of traveling. If I have a long weekend, 3-4 days, I travel. Like I told you, I went to Baku, Azerbaijan, because I had a 4-day weekend.
Yes.
So then I go to a nearby country also, which I haven't been to.
Do you prefer traveling solo, with family or with friends?
Friends, always with a lot of friends.
Lovely.
You see, it's usually done. And it's because we all travel, so far as family is concerned, then once in a while you do. But they're all at a different age and they have their own, so then you meet sometimes, but usually they have their own friends, they have their own...
Correct.
So when you travel, you tend to travel with your friends.
First internship, you were with Mr. Subramaniam, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Subramaniam
Mr.
was my
Ramasubramaniam,
senior.
Yes.
He was the partner in a firm called King and Partridge,
yes.
which was the largest law firm then.
We were speaking about your first few years there. What was the salary that you got there at that time?
King and Partridge was very clear. First 2 years, you get nothing.
Okay.
After 2 years, you're put on the rolls, which means you're paid the princely sum of 350 rupees a month.
Gosh.
In my case, they broke the rule, and after 1 year, they brought me on the rolls. But when I joined, we were given 2 cups of coffee in a day without sugar. If you wanted sugar in your coffee, you had to bring your own sugar.
Oh gosh.
But you were not given sugar in your coffee, which I always say is the greatest thing that happened to me, because even today, I don't have sugar in my coffee because I was too lazy to bring sugar to the office. And they brought me on the rolls in a year. And then I must say, the next 2 years, the kind of increments they gave me, by the time I was 3.5 years there, I was one of the highest paid lawyers in the firm, as much as people who were 15 years and 20 years in the firm. They paid that much. But then even at that, when I say that much, in those days it was about 1,000 300 rupees or 500 rupees a month or whatever, 1,500. So some of my colleagues and I, 5 of us, we decided to leave and form our own firm. And we formed a firm by our names, Nataraj, Rao, Raghu and Sundaram, the order of our age and seniority in the bar. And very soon we picked up a very good practice, so much so that we became probably one of the largest firms in Madras, and definitely one of the largest firms in the original side of the High Court. You know, you can work and you can lead your own life. When I was in Madras, with doing as many cases as I did, I used to act in at least 2 or 3 plays in the English amateur theatre every year.
Okay.
Which means I would finish court, do my conferences and go for rehearsals for 30 days. Every single day at 6:30 and go for rehearsals. And in the middle of all this, find time to work out or to exercise. So I used to do a lot of that. I used to do a lot of public speaking. I used to go on radio shows. I used to play golf almost every single morning. I'd play 9 holes. I'd play 18 holes on Saturday and Sunday. I told you I used to ride. So I found that I could do all that and my work. And I am not one of those lawyers who feels that your whole life is your work, work, work. I don't agree with it. I don't believe in it. And in fact, when the Supreme Court is on vacation, I am on vacation.
Great.
I do not work. I do not go to the vacation courts. And I do not work during the vacation. Instead, I do so many things I like to do. I like to travel. I like to read. Like I told you, I have so many varied interests. I love to do all that.
So what is on your bucket list right now, Mr. Sundaram? What has been accomplished and what has to be accomplished?
To be very honest with you, I have always had a passion to teach.
Oh.
You know, I feel at a certain stage, when any lawyer has reached a level of experience,
Right.
it's his duty to share it with others. And that kind of sharing is something I want to be able to do. And I would enjoy being able to go and lecture in different law schools. But the kind of law schools I would like to lecture in, frankly, are government law schools. I'd like to lecture in law schools where not so affluent students are there, where the standards may not be the standard of a NLU or whatever national law institutes. It may not be that. It might be a much different standard. And I would enjoy going to colleges like that, even in smaller towns and lecturing there. I would enjoy doing that. But to do that, I have to allocate the time because it's a lot of travel time and otherwise. And to combine it with my work, I don't think I do justice to either. You know, I'd find that I'd miss days when I'm meant to lecture because of the work, or I'd miss work because I'm doing that. So that's something I intend to do when I decide to hang up my shoes.
And I think it's fitting straight into the way you've spoken about yourself and your varied interests, about your integrity. Your humility shines right through. And even when you speak, I think it almost registers in my mind as if I'm a student of law and all right, this is the point one. So I think you'd be a marvelous professor, sir.
Thank you. No, but I would really enjoy that.
I want to now shift base to your cases, whether it was the Khushwant Singh case which you won, whether it was one of the first cases in history where you got a great settlement in a medical case, which you fought for many years and then you got it. At that time, it was almost unheard or historic to get such cases, or whether it's your freedom of press cases, your words, your also love for constitutional law. How do you look at this? What were the cases that you cherish? And in recent years, what do you have to say about the ethos that is now there in the Supreme Court?
Well, to be quite frank with you, when I joined the profession, there were 18 judges in the Madras High Court. And, you know, the work pressure, the number of pending cases, etc., was nothing like it is today. So to a great extent, the pressure judges go through today, whether in the High Court or the Supreme Court, with so many pending cases, having to dispose cases, and the media all the time writing about pending cases, what are the courts doing, etc., etc. You must realize the pressure being brought on judges, where they have to dispose of cases. At the same time, if they dispose of cases quickly, then there's a criticism that they don't listen. Now, this is a very practical issue. When I commenced my practice, like I said, we had 18 judges in the Madras High Court. The whole city knew them by name, by face. There were people held in the greatest regard, respect. If they went anywhere, walked in, the whole people, non-lawyers, everybody would stand up and say, oh, there's a judge coming. It was that kind of thing. But they had time. They had far more time than today's judges do. So when there were youngsters who seemed to show great interest in the profession, the courts would encourage them a lot. So I told you about that anecdote earlier about
yes.
that. So, you know, there were a lot of these kind of situations where you got encouraged by the courts. So you got an opportunity to do a lot, which is why I probably was able to start my own practice within 3.5 years, that I was able to become a senior counsel much younger, all that. But those days, a couple of 2 or 3 very great cases happened. Providentially, I appeared in them. One of them was where this very famous table tennis player, who happened to have been my classmate in school.
Oh.
Now, he went in for a simple surgery and then all kinds of complications and came out totally ruined, you know. I mean, his eyesight was ruined. He was like an old man. He couldn't walk. He couldn't. So his grandfather was a very famous lawyer of yesteryear. So decided that they must file a medical malpractice suit. And that was the first of its kind. There was no consumer court. It was a suit for medical malpractice. Until then, nobody had filed such a suit. Now, to get a witness was almost impossible because no doctor would come and give evidence. Fortunately for me, I had a good friend. There was this gentleman in Pune called Dr. Ranade, who had been a famous anesthetist, but when his father got old and he had to take over their fertilizer company. So he said, look, I can come for you, but then they're going to tell me, what are you doing now? How am I going to give evidence? But he got so fascinated with the case, I went to Pune to meet him. And till today, we have remained undying friends.
Lovely.
So he just, you know, said, I know what I'll do. It's up to you. I'm going to call some of my friends over who are doctors, orthopedic surgeons, doctors, etc. And it's up to you. I'm just going to have a party. Let's see how you are able to entice them to come and give evidence.
Gosh.
And true enough, I got them to come and give evidence. And it was unheard of. And judgment was delivered in those days, a huge sum in those days. It was, and I'm talking about 80s, it was about 30 lakhs.
30 lakhs, 31
something
lakhs,
like
yes.
that. It was, the decree was passed. So much so that, you know, are you aware that I was told that it was on BBC that evening that India had given its first verdict on medical malpractice.
Amazing.
So that was an interesting case. And that's been my career path, all kinds of cases, political cases. I used to appear for Jayalalitha. I used to appear for, you know, I appeared a lot for the ex-chief minister of Tamil Nadu, the ex-chief minister of Telangana. I've appeared on sometimes for BJP MLAs who were disqualified, sometimes for the other side, which was disqualified. So I've appeared in a lot of these cases all over the country.
Politically speaking, when you appeared for Jayalalitha, did you meet her? Did you meet any of the other politicians? Which ones did you enjoy particularly meeting, or they struck you for their intelligence, or something about them that struck you?
Oh, the Jayalalitha was a brilliant, brilliant lady. She was absolutely brilliant. She was also very, well, I hate to use that word, but let me say she was absolutely obstinate, absolutely stubborn. There was only one way, and that was her way. I would call her a complete autocrat, and that she was.
Yes.
There was no room for anything else.
Correct.
But having said that, in her second term, I'm not talking about the first term, her first term was disastrous if you ask me. Second term, she tried to do a lot of good. I think she learned from her mistakes. But, and of course, all politicians are politicians one way or the other. But she was very, very brilliant. In fact, I find that most politicians, if you ask me, since you asked that question, are very intelligent people.
Really?
You cannot, you know, you don't classify intelligence on the line of scholarly intelligence.
Yes.
It's not a question of they haven't done their PhD or they haven't done their masters. It's not, I'm not talking about any successful politician has to have an element at least of cleverness, of being able to think, of able to deal with the situation.
Which ones did you particularly enjoy working for, Mr. Sundaram?
Well, I've enjoyed working for the ex-Tamil Nadu when he was Chief Minister and now as the ex-Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. I've enjoyed working for KCR and because I feel he did a lot for that state and I feel he's still in a position where he can do a lot. I've enjoyed that. And of course, one of the most interesting cases was the right to privacy case.
Yes.
Where it's very amusing, but I had been briefed by the government.
Okay.
To say that privacy was not a fundamental right. And I remember when I stood up, a couple of judges on that 9-judge bench actually said, Mr. Sundaram, you are saying privacy is not a fundamental right. You know, it was almost, I mean, it was very light-hearted.
I wanted to ask you a little bit, of course, about the Supreme Court. We all know about the controversy Justice Verma has been in. How are you looking at the entire case and the focus that's been there, sir, on judiciary, on the Supreme Court? It's brought a lot of disrepute, I would say, to our field.
See, I think one is being very simplistic, very naive to imagine that there is any institution which is so above a reproach and which is so clean, so white that you cannot throw a blemish on it.
Sure.
I think we're being very simplistic and naive. Why? Because all these institutions are manned by human beings. And human nature differs from person to person. So whether we like it or not, we are going to have blemishes in the institution.
Yes.
My only source of hope, of succor, if I'd say that, is that if 90% of politicians are suspected to be dishonest, if 70%, I'm using the word suspected, if 70% of bureaucrats or policemen are suspected of being dishonest, in the case of the judiciary, it's a very low percent. At least that I'm grateful for. It's not that people say, oh, 90% of the judiciary or 80%. They say there is corruption in the judiciary. And especially in the lower subordinate judiciary, there are cases, definitely cases of corruption.
Correct.
But you see, our whole system, our judicial system, we have a tiered approach, a layered approach, where you can file appeals. So any case of yours could very easily go through at least 5 different judges. You know, from the single judge to the division bench to the Supreme Court, you know, you're going through so many different layers and so many more judges.
But sir,
so the chance of, you know, dishonesty being against you from right through is not that likely. And I would like to say right now that I, for one, am not willing to believe a story on dishonesty of a judge unless I personally have experienced it, have seen it, know it, because it's so easy to do so.
A short while ago, we were talking about when you were practicing in the Madras High Court, how the judges were, the respect they were given. Today, the judges, the way the courts have been made virtual, the way observations are given, don't you think somewhere judges are getting a little publicity hungry? I mean, whether it's the stray dog case, whether it's any case, I mean, there are just observations galore, whether it's a bench that is suddenly giving out a judgment where they are attacking a judge of the Allahabad High Court, and then the Chief Justice directs that matter to be heard again, and then there's an apology, and that judge is going to be then hearing criminal matters again. What is the Supreme Court coming to?
Look, let me tell you something. There have always, I'm talking about 35 years, 40 years, there have always been fissures within the judiciary. There have always been situations where a particular judge may have said something which his brother judges don't agree with. There have been hundreds of situations. I remember years ago, and I'm talking about more than 45, 50 years ago. Those days, there was no, all this was not on air. See, but 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, I'd say, not even that long, maybe 3 years ago, much in this country changed in the judiciary.
Sir, I want to ask you about a very recent case, the stray dog case, because I just heard a stray dog barking. Which side of this line are you on, the dog lovers or the people who think that Delhi and India, pan-India, should be safe from bites and rabies and these aggressive dogs every day?
I am an absolute dog lover, but I believe that Justice Pardiwala's judgment was right.
I do so. We do too.
And
at
I
Republic.
believe that that judgment was absolutely right, that it's become a menace. The dogs needed to be moved and moved to shelters. And I think that was a very fair thing to say. And I have something to say about it, because I was in fact asked whether I would join in to represent that the judgment ought to be changed, etc. And I said, no. I said, why? 5,000 dogs, they'd find a shelter and do it. They said, no, there are not 5,000 dogs. There are about 5 lakh dogs, 500,000. I said, but I thought that earlier there were 5,000 dogs when the judgment of the Supreme Court was passed that the dogs should be picked up, they should be neutered or sterilized and put back on the streets.
Yes.
I said, but how did that 5,000 become 5 lakhs? Because you got a judgment saying they should be neutered and put back in the streets. If they were neutered and put back in the streets, how could they be 5,000? 5 lakh. So they said, no sir, but the MCD didn't do its job. They didn't do it. They didn't take them off and they didn't neuter. So I said, when the MCD didn't do it, what did you do? I said, you were so quick to file a PIL and get a judgment saying the dogs should be taken, neutered and let back in.
Yes.
When you found the MCD did not do, the corporation did nothing about it.
Yes.
What did you do? Did you file a contempt? Did you file a PIL saying please direct them to do their job? You didn't. You knew very well they were not doing their job and this was going to multiply and multiply, which is why you have the problem today. And today it's become a real issue where you have packs of dogs, 6 and 8 dogs are literally hunting.
Yes.
It's totally.
Children are mauled.
I feel
babies are mauled.
Although I am the greatest dog lover, I always have loved dogs, but I feel this Justice Pardiwala's judgment was absolutely necessary, and I think actually it's a judgment where the court itself was pushed into a corner that it was something that it had to decide what to do. And now the modification made to it to the extent that neuter them and let them out, well, it does mean taking them off the streets.
Yes.
So at least that part I'm glad about. But first let them get neutered and then we take it from there and see what the menace is.
Because we still hear of cases of dog bites.
Oh yes, all the time.
In the Supreme Court as well. So we don't know how the rest of the country will.
All the time, all the time.
I also want to speak to you and thank you for letting us know about your passions, because it's so important to know the man behind the lawyer to really understand the passion for travel, the passion for art, and this really makes us see the entire personality that you are. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.